The Cerberus Codes. I've wondered why it seems seemingly impossible for some people to not turn to hatred, to not go down the dark path. I wanted to call this video the Devil Dog, but then I changed it to the Cerberus Codes. There was a movie where I think it was a group of renegade terrorists or something like that were plotting against American uh, president, like an American president or something like that. And the American president had access to what was called the Cerberus codes, which was essentially nuclear launch codes. Like I think it went with the football and being able to activate nuclear arms. Um, you know, this possibly being potentially devastating in enemy hands. The reason why I labeled it Cerberus codes is because there seems to be there seems to be a way that there seems to be a Cerberus code for people. People oftentimes they can get to the point where they're no longer feeling and deeply intimate as a person. Part of them is ripped out, it's gone. So when they interact with people in a very barbaric way. For example, in the dating market, the Cerberus code would be individuals who started out with very positive, good intending natures, and over time, their interactions ran the gamut of social slights and pain. And of course, this happens in other interactions. You have the workforce, and you see things like that there too. You see the office politics, you see how people are treated, you see how the customers are treated much better than the employees, and the employees are treated as suboptimal than the customers are tailored to for the bottom line of that company or that industry. So lately, I've been thinking that the Cerberus code for men is at least something that I've been thinking about, especially for myself, not just as a man, but as a human. My interactions with people have been positive and negative, more negative than positive. But I've noticed that just my nature and the way I interact with people, it inspires treachery and deceit, and it inspires test. Many tests. People like to test because they want to see if you're weak. They want to see if you're capable. And this is fine. Everyone tests people. This is natural, right? But um, where the Cerberus codes are concerned is where one thing I think people need to understand is that the nature of a person that is trying to do good, that is trying to that's holding out for the better things in the world. It's extremely important not to completely turn these individuals. A lot of people we interact with on a daily basis, they're fighting a battle we don't really understand. We'll never understand the individual battles that people are battling every single day. And it's easy to say something or do something that would turn a person into Cerberus. It will turn a person into a very dark person. Uh, it will turn them down a dark path. The men that women complain about. Oh, he cheated on me, and he did it more than once. It was with 2 or 3 other women, and she's crying her eyes out. She's saying, "But I love him, and I want to go back." Blah blah blah. A lot of these men, they don't really. Here's the thing: some of them probably did just start off as pathetic lowlives who really just don't care for anyone, and they don't have any. They never had any good character. Um, but sometimes individuals were they were slighted against, right? They were treated as the one who, oh, he's too perfect. uh, he's not good enough. He's he doesn't really have an edge. I don't know what it is, but he doesn't make me angry enough. He's not getting angry at me. He's not doing this. He's not doing that. um, I was talking to a lady today, and I told her I actually envy the guys who who treat their wives and their partners like crap. You treat them like dirt, um, in any way, and you could almost say in the worst way possible. Um, you know, physically and everything. The reality of the situation is many times. Uh, Individuals that cause us great pain, we tend to cling to them more. They occupy a greater space in our mind than people who mean us well. And the sick part about this is that if you mean someone well, you're forgettable, right? Look on the news. You got boys, 15, 25, 30 years old, shooting up school, shooting up, whatever they can get their hands on. And they have instant fame, but without these dangerous, uh, without these giant tragic events, right? None of them would be remembered. They would easily fade into obscurity, and no one would know who they are. Um, so back to the Cerberus codes. So the Cerberus codes are, I think, threefold. It stems from an individual's life, as far as their finances, as far as uh, their personal fulfillment, whether they've gotten their uh, whether they're on their path and purpose. And I would say that's the first stage, and then the second would be their romantic interactions, situations with people, um, whether these were net positive or net negative, whether they left or the other person's left. Um, it looks like I could only come up with two just now, at the very least. This was meant to be a longer video because it kind of goes into my own frustrations on things. I've always thought that I could go down a path of righteousness when it comes to dating relationships, but I'm starting to realize that the longer you're in the dating game, the more jaded and the more evil you become. And this is why I say that. The further you go down into the depths of humanity, into the depths of interacting with the opposite sex, and trying to negotiate your terms and position and posture for power and for um, you know any semblance of what you could call some type of romantic fulfillment, um, you start to learn that in order to actually get far in the current dating market with the current pool of people, you have to become more and more psychopathic, more and more sociopathic. You have to develop a very thick skin, but it's almost to the point of, you can almost say it's akin to war, right? Because in war, things like empathy and things like, consideration, whatever else, there's a couple other traits, but there's no real place for those things in war, um, just like in love, and in dealing with romantic relationships. Oftentimes, people will drop their own partners at a whim, and they won't think anything of it, right? And what this creates in another person is what I'm concerned with in the Cerberus codes. Now, you have people who they go down a negative path and they get angry, and they they think, oh man, this is really bad, and then they recover, right? And then think, okay, now I'll look at towards the brighter side of humanity. I'll realize that everyone isn't the same, right? And so I shouldn't just think everyone's the same. I should treat everyone fairly. This is what we're kind of missing as humanity. We don't realize that we actually have the power individually to to turn a person into a very dark person. But it's not it doesn't have to be permanent. But the thing is, with the Cerberus codes, it's important to treat people very carefully, because people come with different traumas and different levels of pain, different levels of regret for their past. They come with certain scripts in their head about how things should be. And we don't really learn how to tailor to other people. We're just a selfish lot. We're very selfish in society. We think that the only thing that matters is us and how we feel, and that's in any given moment. Any given moment. Tie this into our current uh, iteration of dating and relationships, and it turns to hell really fast. The Cerberus codes are essentially when you see a dog and it's already beaten, you go and you kick the dog while it's down, and you keep kicking that dog, and so the dog is starved, plus it's getting kicked, right? You keep kicking a starved dog. Eventually, that dog, it doesn't have food, and it's tired, and it's cold, it's out in the rain, and you go, and maybe the dog goes up to you because it wants food, right? And you see the dog and you kick it. You're like, get out of here, you stupid dog, right? Eventually, that dog's gonna get tired of you kicking it, and you try to kick it, and it's gonna bite your foot off, and you're gonna be screaming for help. Man, no one's gonna come to help you. All that to be said, there's a point in the human psyche, that I think, for the humans who are particularly genuine with other people, where if they flip that switch, if they flip the Cerberus code, so to speak, then you're not really going to be able to recover that person. That person is going to become a very negative and bad thing. And that bad, negative thing is going to cause a lot of pain and a lot of suffering for a lot of people. So, this whole red pill thing about, oh, you just screw them and shoo them, right? Like, all that, how we think we can just use another person and then throw them away, and somehow that's going to make things better for us, because we're living our best life being selfish and and using another person uh, for our own, selfish pleasures. Which, I understand that women like selfish men, so it's not necessarily 100% bad anyway. They like that energy anyway. That selfish, dark energy, they love that, right? It's like, man, this man, he's vicious. He can protect me. He's strong. Um, he's strong. He's selfish. He only cares about himself. Women, they perceive guys who only care about themselves as having the traits that they want, that they desire. A lot of times, it's kind of dark, but for me, for a long time, it's made me hate my nature. It's made me hate who I am, and I'm just being honest. It's easy to hate. Here, let me show my face. Since I am having a conversation, this is just a conversation. I've hated my nature for a long time, and I've been thinking about this today. The fact that I try to be cordial with people, that I don't really use a lot of social gambits and things like that with people, unless there's a drastic reason to. Um, but the more I watch it, and the more it happens to me, the more jaded I get about humanity and about where our path and our direction is going to go, right? Because let's just say all of this stuff stops tomorrow, and we're more considerate of each other, and we suddenly start to realize that there's other things in life than treating each other like uh, used napkins. I don't know. Um, all that pain in the past, is that just supposed to evaporate into thin air because it's not really going to be easy to forget it? I don't really think so. The women of this generation think that they're better than men because of the inflated social media that they use: Tinder, uh, TikTok, Instagram. The men think that they're less than women, but they they deal with much more. The men. I was talking to my friend about this. If men were in the same position as women, and they had, let's just say we flopped, right? The men had all the choice, and the women were the one who were starved of physical intimacy, and they were starved of attention and things like that. And they had to work and gain social status and gain more things in order for guys to want to talk to them. If it was flipped, uh, of course women would understand, oh, this is the life of a man, this is truly awful. I feel like crying myself to sleep every day, right? um, it wouldn't help anything. All this to say, all of that particular thing to say is that the reason why I bring that up is because men, I've thought about this, we're not any more righteous than women. If we were in a position where we could start with our time on the earth and just get, um, hey Lawrence. So if we were kind of like women, we started our lives with all of our value, um, and everyone just instantly liked us just cause, right? And of course, a lot of men would like that. But here's the thing: we would turn just as dark, just as evil, just as unaccountable as a lot of women are. We would we would relish in the same things. We would revel in the same things. We would become just as dark. We would become just as deceitful. We would judge just as much. We would shame the women just like they shame us. It would look really interesting, right? Because you'd have a bunch of low self esteem women walking around begging for attention, begging to be seen, begging to be noticed. And the sympathy would be nowhere to be found. Let's just say men controlled spending and stuff like that, money and all that. The advertisers would advertise for what the men want, and society would be let's just say society would cater to the men. Let's just say it's possible to flip the gynocentric ness of the world. The fact that the world caters to the woman because most of the money flows to the woman, so it's just an economic engine. And so everything we do is to please women, our entertainment, our, all of that. But I'm kind of digressing a whole. I'm going off into tangents. But going back to what I was saying, the Cerberus Codes is something I think that everyone has to face. But the ones who activate those codes are the ones who treat people like dogs. These people are unaware. They don't really think about what they're doing. I've had people in my past be actively deceitful just because it felt good to them, things like that. And it's interesting. You get people that say, "Hey man, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. Just move on, move past it." Here's the reality. A lot of people mentally, if they can get wins, they can move past a situation that's negative and that's bad, right? But many people, a lot of times, people don't get wins. They don't get, because psychologically, if you can get a win, then you can develop that hope for the next thing, the next goal, the next rise. You can have that confidence and you can have that, yeah, I can do it and I can meet this deadline and I can, I can move the boulder. I thought the boulder was too heavy, but I kept pushing and somehow it budged. So I'm going to keep moving the boulder, right? If it never budged, you're not going to bother. You're going to be, this is dumb. This fucking, this is useless. I'm going to go do something else, you know? Um, Dating for a lot of men is kind of like a big boulder, right? He All he has to do is move the boulder just an inch, and then he'll think, "Oh wow, I moved it. I'm gonna come back another day and I'm gonna move it even further." And he's got to move it about another feet or 2 feet, and then he can, I don't know, get a date or something. um, that boulder doesn't move. Not really gonna want to do anything. Um, Let me see if I can wrap up. So the Cerberus codes are, I don't think it's something that just happens straight out, but many times it does. You get a person who they do something to you, and it's particularly heinous, or it just happens over time, where you're a product of another person's deceit over and over and over again, and you get jaded, and you just. It seems like there's a saying, and it was in Batman, is you either live long enough to become you either die a hero or you live long enough to become the villain. And there's a lot of truth to it, because the villains, most of them start out as good people. They start out with good intentions. It's just they give in to their shadow side and they allow it to possess them because of the pain they feel. Um, Granted, most men nowadays are starting to become enlightened on the nature of relationships, the nature of their shadow, the nature of a woman's shadow is starting to become clear to men. And this is causing a lot of pain, a lot of sadness, a lot of grief, a lot of frustration. And it's causing men to disassociate from their own humanity. Um, Out of out of a desire to protect their own self-interest. Our selfishness is disconnecting us from each other. And I'm not saying this to blame the red pill space, the manosphere. I'm saying this because I see something that could potentially cause great pain to a lot of men. It's caused a lot of pain to me. Um, to have situations that, turn your heart cold and turn you into a really negative person, things like that. I don't think this is ideal. I honestly don't see a lot of stop to it as well. I think we've kind of gone down a path that is extremely treacherous. There's a lot of very thin tolerances in this path that we've gone down as a culture. We've told uh, one group that they don't have to be accountable for their actions and that they can do things at the whim of how they feel. And we've told the other group that they're accountable for everything, but they have authority for very little, right? We've given more and more responsibilities to one side, and on the other side, we've given them pretty much a whole lot of authority, but no responsibility. So we've created a world where grown children get to masquerade as adults, and the adults on the other side have to watch and kind of masquerade along with them in this cognitive dissonance, watching an adult phase in and out between two states of being a child and an adult, a child and an adult, whenever they want, just at a whim. There's another thing I wanted to say. Um, just back to the more polarized aspect of things. So, as a man, it's really important that you understand that once you've reached the point of Cerberus Codes, it's kind of too late. When you reach that, you don't go back and you become a terrible person. And this is something that I've always feared that I would become, just because, I'm always trying. I'm a very, I'm a rugged guy when it comes to dealing with rejection and things like that. But one thing I've learned is that the one thing I wish I learned early on in the dating game, in the relationship game, is you can never take a woman serious if she's tasted blood. If she's tasted blood, taking her serious it's a death sentence, because once you take her serious, then she'll see that you're taking her serious and she'll feel that she has power over you. Um, it shouldn't have to be about power, but it is, and that's the reality. And I think that's the sad thing that guys realize, because the guys are feeling in their relationships, right? They're thinking, oh, I love this woman and I feel this and I feel that, and he's thinking, oh, these feelings are strong. And for a lot of guys, their relationships, their attraction is more stable when it comes to women. But for women, it's different. Their attraction is far less stable and it's a bit more volatile, even. Um, but the way that a man counteracts the volatility of a woman's interest in him, the capriciousness of it, she could be in love with you for the first 1 or 2 years, but then the next year she can be in love with you for a month, and then after that month, then she thinks you're disgusting. Right? She's like, "Who are you?" And she doesn't like you. Her feelings compel her to believe that you are the scum of the earth and you're not valuable, in spite of what she thought in your past. I always thought it was fascinating. I talked to some women regarding my channel, things like that. And sometimes they'll say things like, "Oh yeah, I've been in a relationship for 3 years, for 4 years, or something like that," as if it matters, right? As if that's going to have any type of precedence over their own emotional states. once they decide that their partner um, is less than perfect, he's less than optimal, and then they, maybe their hypergamic instincts will compel them to go and find another guy. But I always thought it was comical how a lot of people, they say, "Oh yes, I've been together for 4 years, for 3 years. Oh yes, it's 9 years now, right?" Like it matters. Like wow, the fact that we've gone through this so much stuff is going to keep us from the flames of hell. Um, no, it's not. I'm sorry to be the bear. I'm not sorry, actually. It won't. Um, what I've noticed is that the person who has the most power in a relationship will tend to not care about the amount of years that are put in. They tend to care less about that. Now, the person who has less power, they tend to put more stake on the years because they value the person more, because they see the person as more of something they need, whereas the other person sees the person as either something they want or that they don't really truly desire. And so they don't really put as much stake on the amount of time. More so, they focus more on the emotional states that the person is giving them. It's like, oh, am I happy with you today? Am I happy with you right now? As opposed to, I'm always happy with you, right? The other person is like, I'm always happy with you. I love being with you. I just wish, I wish we could work things out. You're always trying to work things out with a person that doesn't really care about you. This is the disturbing thing about relationships. Um, there doesn't seem to be a way to negotiate with the power, with the side with the most power, because the side with the most power, they there's always this arrogance, this pride that comes from him. Like Lucifer, he was cast out of heaven by God, but before he turned prideful, and he was very beautiful, right? Like women, they're very beautiful, um, but their beauty, with it, there's a pride behind it, and with partners that they've loved for years, they can turn to this dark pride, right? It's like this, oh, I'm so much better than you. There's so many things I can do better, and I'm gonna go find someone better, and I'm gonna go live a better life. And it can happen at such a whim. Here's the thing, because I know guys, we get prideful too. Um, I know that this is just a human condition, uh, but it's interesting. Pride, it causes so much pain. There's so little empathy that derives from it. Um, there's a lot of things I can talk about with this, but I don't want to go too far into it because I've already gone about 30 minutes. Not a lot of facts and figures to go along with this video. It's just my own frustrations coming out. Sometimes I use this medium just to get out my frustrations. Sometimes I use it to share my thoughts on the darker aspects of human nature. I've learned that this whole female nature that we say, we make a delineation between female nature and male nature because they're different. They're not the same. Women are counterintuitive. They like the opposite. Like if you want a woman to like you, you treat her bad. If you want a woman to love you, you don't really show any interest in her. If you want a woman to hate you, or if you want a woman to not like you, then you show that you like her, right? Like they're very intuitive creatures. It's interesting. If you want a woman to be attracted to you, then you don't show that you're attracted to her, or you push and you pull, right? Um, with men, it's different. If you want to show a man you like him, if you want him to like you, then just show that you like him. If you want a man to love you, then just show that you love him. If you want a man to, we're very different, is the point. Um, so this video is kind of a plea to men because um, one of the things that can counteract the Cerberus code, once you put in these codes or this code, then you turn into a demon. You turn into a bad thing. You cause a lot of pain to a lot of women's lives. Um, but just humans in general, when they flip that switch and they become this, it's not good. And I think the way to counteract this is to one way is to learn to not take things seriously. Don't treat it as if it's something that requires. You just can't really take things serious. Dating, for example, you can't take it serious because if you take it serious, with how people treat each other now and how selfish society, how selfish men and women have become, women especially because they're given so much choice. Uh, they're given so much choice and so much leeway in the dating market that they've lost most of their character, most of their virtues. They just kind of turned into vile. There's a vile aspect about them, a lot of them. It's interesting I say that, right? Because I met a woman recently who has some decent traits. I would text and she would text very quickly and back as quickly as she can. Now, she did have negative aspects to herself as well. Like everyone has their positives and negatives as far as the traits that they have. Um, that being said, though, um, not taking people serious in the dating market, not taking them serious all the time, I think is one of the ways you can counteract the Cerberus codes. Because once you go down that road, there's not really another road to traverse. There's no battle to contend with. Uh, there's men battling the urge to turn to darkness and to cause more pain and suffering to women's lives and um, to to make them feel like they felt. I was watching a video recently. Mike Tyson, he had a little TikTok video. Well, there's a compilation with him in it. Let's say he didn't just make a TikTok video, but he was saying the more money he got, the more lonely, the more he felt like self-deleting, homicidal, and the more money, the less respect he had for women. He actually said this in his words: "I had less respect for women. I was homicidal. I felt like self-deletion. Felt and you know it's crazy that someone who's so seemingly on top of the world is dealing with the same demons as just the average man, just on a different plane, on a different level. He's looking down at a lot of people in the world and they're thinking he's amazing, but then he's like, you have no idea, right? So, for the men who don't want to, for the people, who don't want to battle their demons and don't want to become better, um, I would just say give in to your shadow. Um, have fun, right? Because a lot of people are going to suffer in your wake. But then for the people who, and here's the thing, I don't blame you, honestly. I've wanted to give into that myself. There's a lot of times where I felt that, like recently, I was thinking to myself, man, if I'm talking to people, maybe I should just treat them in a very negative way because, at least I'll get something out of them, right? And so I can just say, hey, you're kind of ugly, and then just they'll get mad at me, and I just make fun of them. right? You say you're kind of stupid, right? It sounds crazy, but um, no one really cares about manners and being good. It used to be that your manners and your good behavior used to get you, and it doesn't necessarily have to get you, sex, but it used to you used to have that reciprocated at least somewhat, right? Nowadays, having good manners and being nice and courteous and things like that, mm, maybe it alters how some people perceive you in a good way, but for a lot of other people, they just see you as, oh, oh, what's he trying to do? What is his ploy? What's his plot? Right? Oh, he's up to something. It's like, no, I'm just being this way because I am this way. People only seem to respect you if you show that you're vicious, if you show that you have teeth, if you show that you'll rip their head off. Like, man, oh, I got to be careful around this one. Oh, he's kind of cool though, right? Ooh, he's rough. He pretty much yelled at me at that stuff was going down, right? You snap at women, especially, they'll see you as a challenge. Like, oh man, he's a loose cannon. He must have gone through a lot of crap, right? They like hotheads. They like men who do first and don't. They do things first and they don't think about the things before they do it. Um, Not all of them, of course. Um, I think it, to close, because I don't want to do another yawn and do this too. The darker things that you face, the battles where you think no one will appreciate your goodness, and you start to hate your nature. You start to believe that being you is not a good thing. That no one wants it, and no one cares about it. I would I would argue that if you don't battle this, here's the thing: the battle that you're having, it exists at a higher level. There are people fighting the same battle at the same parallel and even at a higher level on a higher plane. They're having those same struggles, those same doubts. They're saying, well, why should I care about the greater good? Why should I be responsible for what I do to this woman or this man or this whoever you're interacting with, this person? The reason is because you're aware of what it'll cost, what'll happen to other people if you treat that person in that way. That's why you should care. And since you're aware of what will happen, the karma that will come to you is, and I understand it's esoteric. It's like, oh, it's very esoteric, right? Who cares? Um, I don't know. I'm actually kind of in the middle because I'm not mad at people who turn to the darkness because they've been treated awful. I can understand it. I can understand the women that turn that way too. I can understand the men that turn that way. It's easier to understand the men because I am a man, but I understand the woman's perspective too. She actually tried to be good, but then the guy cheated, and he, maybe more than once. Maybe he withheld sex and stuff like that. There's always a laundry list of things that people do. For me, I don't want to just revel in the darkness. I want to move on and find a different path, however hard that's going to be. Everyone's got their development that they got to do and they want to take and stuff like that. I figure my own development is going to be something uh, It's gonna be something I gotta work on. I gotta find my own peace because, sometimes it's easy to take things serious when you only designate a small amount of time, or there's a lot of things um, that I could say about that. In closing, some men, they become Cerberuses, they become devil dogs. Some people become dark, very dark things, and sometimes we assist the most in creating these monsters. And this is something that we have on our conscience. Even if you don't have it on your conscience, I think it'll come back to you somehow. And I guess my suggestion would be, do your very best to to lead people where you found them, because the ramifications of trying to get over on another human being is, it doesn't look all that severe at first, because we're very selfish. Modern society is very selfish, and we don't really uh, show a lot of concern for other people. But there are people struggling out there with demons that we could never begin to understand. Um, I think just that kind of empathy alone is something that we need more of. And in order to get it, I think the solution is to get away from the selfishness that we have, get away from the constant belittlement and judgment, and the desire to have the most wrong with our lives than another person. Um, I hope that with my content, I'm telling my honest, true thoughts, and that anyone listening can get something out of it. But that's it. The Cerberus Codes.